The place of origin of a jar of honey is as important as a vineyard to a bottle of wine. And the care that is taken of the honeybees is comparable to looking after the vine. I've come to Essex for some of Britain's finest and wildest honey. How was it that you became interested in honey?
Through my husband Dale training as a beekeeper, leaving the city and deciding that he wanted to change his life fairly substantially, and he was lucky enough to be trained by the Queen's beekeeper, a man called John Chappell. We all assumed at that point, all those years ago, which was 2006, 2007, that there was a problem with honeybees potentially going extinct. That is not the case actually at all anymore. There's enough honeybees. It's the other bees we have to worry about, the wild bees. I got suckered into it, Michael. I didn't mean to. I'm a writer, that's what I am.
But you're also a honey sommelier.
I am.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means that I trained in Italy with a body of people who are very concerned with qualifying the authenticity of honey. And the human palate is always going to be the best way to analyse honey. We very much talk about our honey as people would talk about wine. We talk about the terroir because it comes from the soil in the same way as wine. It's affected by the climate. The bees live their lives as they do, but it's very different from year to year because they're responding very sensitively to the conditions around them.
You used to have bees in London, is that right?
We did. We started off as London beekeepers, and we were one of the first people doing it. Again, it seemed like a brilliant thing to do, and it was. As time has gone on, a lot of beekeepers have piled into London, so we now have a situation where London has, by a factor of 3 times, the highest honeybee population of anywhere in Europe. Now, that's clearly not sustainable, and we've had terrible outbreaks. Parallel with COVID, we had outbreaks of terrible bee disease, which we had to deal with. So we've been very steadily moving hives out of central London, off the rooftops, and into London Docklands.
And what is the difference between honey that might come from a hive like these that we see behind us and the honey I might buy in a supermarket?
They are completely different. One of the best equations is to think about a single estate coffee, some wonderful beans grown by somebody in a place, a named place by a named producer, and compare that to a cup of instant coffee granules. The honey in a supermarket is largely a constructed, processed and anonymised product. You have no idea its origins.
So a fundamental difference between this sort of honey and supermarket honey. May I go over there and take a look?
Yes, let's do that.
Here we are at the end of March. I thought the bees would be quite docile at this time of year, but they're buzzing about.
Yeah, well, the weather is good. We've got sunshine, we've got 14 degrees of temperature, and so there's pollen to be had.
So, Dale, what are the duties of the beekeeper? What does the beekeeper have to do to help the bees?
Well, I think our view about beekeeping is you want to have maximum knowledge and minimum intervention. So really the bees have been on Earth for 88 million years and they know how to be bees. So I don't want to try and tell them how to do that. I just want to help them on their way through becoming better bees.
Now, would it be terribly intrusive if we looked inside a hive?
Not at all. Always just remember that what we're doing when we open up a hive is we're changing their environment from dark to light, and we're dropping the temperature by probably about 15 degrees. Everyone's very concerned about bees, but here I'm putting my hand right in the middle of our bees, and there isn't any consternation amongst them at all. They're really not that disturbed at all to see us. And you see they've still got plenty of honey left here from winter. Still lots to get them going into the spring.
Did it take you long to learn all these techniques, Dale?
I'm still learning. I mean, it's only been 17 years after all. So here we have a nice frame of bees. You've got pollen there, you've got bee eggs. Like chess pieces, they can only do certain things and make certain moves, but the combination of those moves, like chess, is pretty infinite, which makes beekeeping quite interesting as you try to piece together which way the bees are heading and what they're up to. But that's just the queen bee that was responsible for all of these eggs. All of these bees are her daughters.
All of them?
All of them.
That's quite a rate of reproduction, isn't it?
Yes, you need to get this bee colony up to about 70,000. So if you put your you push my fingers out the way. There you go. So there you are, Michael. Big smile. Now that you're a beekeeper, you've made a great progress here.
It is quite a feeling, this, because
It is.
we're all trained, we're all conditioned, aren't we, to be frightened of bees and wasps. And here I am holding, what, a couple of thousand, I imagine?
Yep, that's about right.
Extraordinary.
So we'll leave all of that and we're going to go and taste some wonderful British honeys. I'm going to start you off with what is the closest that we have in Britain to a monofloral, a single plant honey, and that's a heather honey. So I'm going to just teach you a tasting technique as well, because putting honey straight on your tongue, what happens is that the taste buds will immediately give you that sense of sweetness, and what we don't want to talk about in honey is sweetness. We want to talk about savoury notes, we want to talk about the other things that develop. You take a good honey tasting, you have to really indulge yourself. You take a great big wad of it. You're going to put it in your mouth holding your nose, and you're going to then take the spoon out and count to 4 and just let your tongue take it to the back and then breathe through. Then you'll get this great blast of aromas. So, classically, heather honey has this wonderful crunchy texture, silky in between, and it's bittersweet. If you can imagine being on the moors, when there's that great carpet of purple, that's when the bees are there. And the smell of the moors.
It's a glorious honey, isn't it?
It is a glorious, glorious
Both texture
honey.
and flavour. Oh, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm very, very keen on our London Docklands honey because they come from rewilded land. It's just growing wild, and they're helping themselves to it. They're not requiring somebody to plant a crop to feed them. This is just what nature provides.
Where can people get beautiful honeys like these?
I a lot of my honey shopping online.
Online?
Yes. And look for small producers.
Yeah.
And look for producers who are talking about where their bees are and how it's differentiated it is. So this is very shrubby, this honey. This one, best honey in the UK. So a couple of years ago. It's one of our...
What do you mean by shrubby? What kind of...
sort of green herby notes. And quite different from that heather, as you see.
Completely different. Who are the specialist buyers of honey? What sort of people want to buy very particular honeys?
Chefs. Chefs. That's we entirely sell to chefs and bartenders because they're very good at picking out the individual notes. They'll then reflect those in something, a dish that they're making. I'm going to do a horrible thing to you, Michael. You asked me earlier the difference between a supermarket honey and real honey, and I think now you've had 2 quite big thwacking honeys, you'll be able to...
So now you're opening up a glorious plastic bottle.
I'm opening up a glorious plastic bottle. It's dead.
Yeah.
It's absolutely dead.
Completely pale.
Yeah, there's no...
Doesn't have anything, does it?
No depth, no longer on the tongue. There's nothing. It's just absolutely awful.
So wonderful British honey, being shaken or stirred, if you're lucky, at a cocktail bar near you.